Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. Welcome to our show today, and you see Tom Pringle in the other seat, so you probably know this is the August edition of AI Pulse. Tom, welcome. Good to see you. I know you just got back from Spain, so you're looking very rested. That's nice.
Thank you very much. I feel very rested, and no doubt won't feel very rested by the end of this week.
Well, yeah, that's yeah. Luckily, it's only one more day, so you're not.
There you go. Plus, and it's a public holiday here in the UK on Monday, so more pluses. And also, nice. I appreciate the privilege of being able to say, lucky me, I got to go to Spain on vacation, so I really can't complain.
I'm definitely jealous on that one. So, all right. Well, anyway, so I guess we should jump in. Recent news, discuss the impact on business. Same format as always, but the one that has to start, right, because you have to, is the GPT-5 launch, and then some noise around that too, I guess. But OpenAI has launched its latest version of GPT-5 now, replaces 4. It's got a Nano, a Mini, and a Pro. And I don't know if you've tried it, but I will say the one thing that I've learned immediately about it is, wow, it's fast. Like, wow. I don't know if it's more accurate, but it's fast.
You want it accurate or do you want it fast? Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, so no, I haven't used it. I have read quite a lot of the kind of conversation around it. And there's been the classic, it's going to be. There's definitely some hype that previewed the release. And there was some conversation about, is this going to be somehow kind of magically AGI, so the artificial general intelligence? And I think possibly expectations were maybe set up a little up here, and reality was maybe a little bit down here. But like I said, I haven't used it, so I can't speak as authoritatively on it. But yeah, I mean, it's the new model. And I suppose the question that kind of rises in my head, and you can argue it many different ways, is, are we starting to see diminishing returns when it comes to the LLM approach? Or is this a good thing because it will allow us to focus on specializing the technology to more sort of specific tasks like we talked about in the past, be that industry related or use case related or individual user related? And the answer is, of course, I don't know. But what did you make of it? Have you used it? It's fast.
Yeah, I've used it. It's fast, but it is. So I played around with it, and I haven't done a lot of head-to-head sort of comparisons because I tend to use them just for work, right? I mean, I do all sorts of research with them, and I tend to use Perplexity and Claude, depending on the exact use case. But I thought, let me work. I have a subscription to OpenAI. I've had it for since the beginning, and I did use it. I have used it a few times, and actually a couple times had some really weird network challenges with Claude. I don't. It's like they had some bandwidth issues, or I don't know. But anyway, I couldn't get it to answer the question when I wanted it to. So I would switch to ChatGPT, and it's fast. The answers that I got to the questions that I asked were good. They were thorough. I had it do a few, like, here, outline this, summarize that, look this up, that kind of thing. And it was good. It was funny because people were complaining so much about, I lost 4, which shows us some interesting emotional points too. But anyway, we could talk about that. But
that's in the news in the UK here at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's in the news here too. But the thing is, like, I didn't miss 4 at all. I just started using 5 and was happy that it was fast and seemed to answer the questions. But I mean, it's not better than the others at what I do. But then again, I've read several articles that say, it's way better at coding, or and I don't do vibe coding. Maybe I should try it just because, but I haven't done that yet because I haven't had time.
I've been messing around with some of that recently.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. But anyway, but yeah, I think it's a good model. it is a definitely incremental improvement. It took longer than any of the other releases between, version to version. So maybe you're
Mhm.
right. Maybe that is showing that we're reaching some sort of a end of capability to improve with this technology, and we have to think about what's next, which I mean people are doing anyway. I don't know, but I will say the AGI thing that there's a thing that I just participated in. Thinkers 360 to this thing where they took a few of its ambassadors and had us do this this sort of write up, quick short write up about a question. And the question this time was, do I think the singularity is going to come by 2030 or something like that? And they define singularity as a technological thing, not the other one, not the Kurzweil thing of merging the cyberbot merging people to
Yeah.
machines. They did it as it can think better than humans. And I my answer to this, and I think I probably told you this before, but I go back to this every time. I look at it and I go, how arrogant are we that we think that machines can think just like humans and humans are the standard? Like, why is that a thing? Why don't we say humans think this way and machines think this way, and let's evolve both of them and we'll see what happens. But I think, in my mind, it's I don't know, I don't wanna evaluate a machine thinking model and intelligence based on just comparing it to human. Maybe it's comparing it to machine thinking and intelligence and seeing where that goes. Anyway, that's my add to that. I guess I get a little annoyed when I see the an AGI. I Is it? I mean,
I think you've got a strong point. I think it's a case of two things can be true at the same time.
yeah.
Simple example I always remember is unless you're like some kind of super math genius with an amazing memory, how many digits can you remember pi to? Right, so maybe it's like 3.14, 3.14, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
Whereas even a simple computer from the 1960s or 70s could probably remember quite a
Mhm,
lot more digits, right? So that's just a different
mhm,
type of intelligence, to use that word. Maybe that's the controversial word here. And 100%, I think the issue is that the intelligence as it is may well be different, but by comparing it to human intelligence, that's a standard that's very relatable to everyone,
yeah.
right? So yes, it might be human hubris, if you will, but equally, it's a very relatable measure. So can I have a conversation with a machine that feels like I'm having a conversation with a really smart human? And I do think sometimes we get too caught up with
Mhm,
these definitions, right? So I remember
yeah.
2015, 16,
Yeah.
thereabouts, first talking about machine learning. And I remember being shot down for lumping AI and automation to the same kind of, not the same group, but using umbrella terms.
Mhm,
Because that was wrong, apparently. And machine learning was very much this, and this was very much that, and so on and so forth. And the definition was really, really important. Because if it wasn't really important, then certain people didn't seem to get to say it as often or whatever. And I'm not sure the definition matters that much because your mileage may vary, right?
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, so what AGI is for
Well,
you?
yeah, I don't know. It's funny too because we know today there's been a lot of talk about the fact that we don't really understand what LLMs are doing, and there's another story we're going to talk about later that kind of ties into this too.
Oh,
But it is true. There's a lot of things that it does that we don't really understand. But guess what? Look at neurophysics and science, and understanding human intelligence. We don't understand human intelligence either. There's whole holes in the science around this that don't make sense, right? People don't understand. So is it unusual then that we don't understand how some intelligence works? No, we don't understand our own, let alone the machine one. So I don't know. I think maybe let's just try to evolve both processes, functions, whatever we want to call them, forward and see where that goes. I don't know.
yeah, and the warning shot there was fire in this set of circumstances. You well know. Hopefully, it's done in a way which is genuinely complimentary.
Yeah.
I think because
Yeah.
we're edging around like a conversation, yes, slowly making our way around the conversation about whether kind of humans are be replaced by, or whether this, or whether that, and the answer, of course,
Mm,
is it's probably possible to have a more than the sum of the parts conversation.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, question is, do do the socioeconomic structures we have in place today, are they capable of dealing with that? Oh my goodness, we ended
Yeah.
up getting philosophical far too early today.
No, yeah, well, no, and I mean, but it's a philosophical question, but it interestingly enough is a technology question too. So you kind of get this weird thing that's happening that anyway, I think yeah, okay, enough said about that one, I guess. But
But
it's an
it's, I
interesting
mean,
topic. I mean, it's an
yeah,
interesting topic.
like I scanned that. I scanned it was I think it was on the BBC News about people developing relationships with some
Mm,
various
yeah.
LLMs. You were saying maybe it was in the news in the US as well. People
Oh
missing.
yeah, yeah.
I think kind of that's exactly it. There's all sorts of different elements to this, which we're just at the moment we're sort of feeling our way around. I have no idea,
Yeah.
where we're going to land on it. But
Well, and
it's
the thing is, all these
yeah,
little things, right? The ideas that it's giving you wrong information, it's hallucinating. Maybe that's not bad. Maybe that's just creativity. I don't know, but it's also doing some nefarious things, right? I mean, it's telling people to go off of their medicines and causing all sorts of problems and go ahead and commit suicide and like whatever. It has some evil behavior sides, right? Which is bad. I mean, if people are going to start to build a relationship with the machine intelligence, which I think is the right thing. I do think that's going to happen. I don't think there's any way around it. But but how do you get to the point where that is in a space that's predictable and trustworthy and not leading people down the wrong path, which leads me to the next story, and that's this technology review article, MIT technology review, which I love. I read every week of how do you. It was an interesting experiment that Anthropic ran, and this write up
Mhm.
in MIT was how do you prevent how do you train LLMs to not be evil, and the way that that's been done so far is to do post training about what you should and shouldn't do, but what they found was doing some of those post-training routines, if you eliminated a certain behavior, there was more than one outcome to that. There were other things that happened that weren't good, right? So I get it to not give bad, you know, suicide advice, but at the same time, I cause it to hallucinate more, or I cause it to, invent stories or whatever. I don't. It was bad behavior, and you were trying to train that out, and it just didn't work. So they tried this experiment of teaching it as you were doing the original training, training it as a part of that base level training, training it to do evil, and and it had the opposite effect on the model that was released, and it also had the opposite effect. It didn't eliminate other thing. It didn't have other downstream repercussions when they did the training. So it's kind of an interesting one. Can you train it to be evil so that it isn't?
It's a great question. And I did not dig too deep into this one, given that I was on vacation. But uh, I'm curious to know. So there were sort of different types. There were sort of different personas that they used,
Mhm.
theoretical personas they used, or hypothetical personas they used.
Yep.
And I suppose I was interested. I mean, how did they explain that? And did you read anything about that? Because so we talk struggling about to explain how LLMs came to certain conclusions, or how they created something or made something up, hallucinated, whatever. Did they explain a bit more about why training it to be quote evil end quote
Mhm.
made it not so?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line to that is they're not sure.
Yeah,
But I mean, but a lot of
that's
stuff
the
they're
impression I was
not sure.
getting.
I mean, but at the same time, that no. So the persona thing was interesting because as part of that was, um, we're back to this putting human characteristics on a machine, and does that really
Mhm.
work? But apparently, in this case, there is kind of a personality or a persona that exists. I mean, you've seen this like with OpenAI's release of the extra sycophantic model that was really kissing up to everybody, or the opposite, the one that Musk and company released that was what do they call it? Mecha Hitler. It was it was
I believe that
extremely
was
on the
the term.
other end.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've seen these things take on some kind of persona, and I think it's not unrealistic to think that even if you train a model on all of this knowledge based on humans and machines, but humans too, does it learn personas as a part of that training? Maybe. It seems like
Mm.
that was part of it, and so I don't know. I don't think putting personas necessarily on it is incorrect, but at the same time, it's back to that same old thing. Make sure you're not thinking of it as it's a human doing this, it's a machine doing this, and it has different ways that it approaches different outcomes. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very human to see patterns where they might not necessarily exist. We don't like uncertainty. We like to be able to explain things when possible. So, if I can claim that it's got personality, then of course that allows me to explain some other things that might not necessarily be
Yeah.
factually based, I suppose is the way I think about it. Although I have
Yeah.
noticed it seems to be a bit of a trend, doesn't it, with the kind of the big LLMs that I've played with, which is that they do tend to be, on the whole, no offense, a bit sycophantic generally.
Mm.
If I ask it a question or give it something to review, and I'm often told how great my question is and how curious a mind I must have, and
Yeah.
I,
But I mean,
okay,
isn't that a nice little boost when you're in the middle of your work and it goes like, "Good job, you're really doing well today." And I go like, "Yeah, I am.
but
How
what?
about
Yeah,
that?"
sure. But I don't believe for 1 second anyone who's ever worked with me knows this to be true. That not all my questions are that smart, right? Sometimes I ask not smart questions. Uh,
Yeah.
and
But I don't really want it to go, "Wow, that's a stupid question." Like, I just assume it
no,
doesn't do that. Like,
I would if it told me I can see why you asked that question, but here's where you should, charge
maybe you
now.
wanna rethink that and move over here. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that's
I
probably
could
fair.
buy that. That's all sugarcoating. That
Yeah.
works quite nicely.
Well,
Um,
so the idea of memory though, this kind of plays into that, right? So the fact that it starts to you feed it things over time, it learns things about you that it starts to provide back to you in a way that is aligned with what you think. Like just for example, with with Claude, you can put in things you don't want it to build into answers. Because like I hate the fact that it overuses the adjectives and adverbs that are over the top, like this is a vast, huge, amazing thing of blah blah blah. Like I hate that.
little hy
So
a
i
little
i told it
hyperbole.
not to do that, and I told it not to, why can't it just go a verb versus represents? Why does everything have to represent something? Why can't it just be that? And things like that, I have trained it. But now I've seen, like, it comes back to me and goes like, well, we know you don't like to see blah blah blah, so here I'm going to do this way. Like, okay, thanks, I appreciate you knowing that I don't like that, so that's good. i,
Yeah,
I don't know. Mm.
and we wonder why people feel like these are personalities.
Well, that's my point, right there. We are building it to have some sort of persona or personality, and you can define that in some ways as you interact with it, either explicitly, like in that setup for Claude, or indirectly by asking questions in a specific way, prompting in a way that leads it to know that I hate the fact that it uses an M dash in every sentence it gives me back. I don't like that. Put a comma in there like everybody else. Like, come on. It learns that after a while, and, I get that. That's good. I appreciate that it doesn't give me every other sentence as a M dash stupid weird thing.
Yeah, that they have become quite common. I don't believe it's anything to do with LLMs.
No, no, I don't think so either. And this next question, or this next article that I listed, don't pay any attention to the M dash, and that I did not generate that from
Yeah, of
Perplexity.
course you did, Michael. I'll believe you, and I'll leave it to the audience to figure out whether they believe you.
Good. Well, so that leads me to this one, and this one I was excited about because this is, part of, I've had this ongoing argument with family and with colleagues about the fact that we know that this whole AI boom is a huge energy sink, and it does have some impact on on the ecology, environment, etc.
It sure
And
does.
yeah, and my argument back has always been, yeah, but at the same time, we're going down this path, and if the artificial intelligence can lead us to the point where we learn new things that take us past that, make it better, tell us ways to clean up the environment or tell us ways to get better energy, you know, uh, power out of what we have or whatever. Those are the opposite side of it. That's good, right? The brighter side. And so this article jumped out at me because of that, right? So it was a article about using generative AI to design new battery materials because we know that lithium has all sorts of issues, right? It has environmental issues, it has some, storage issues, it has certain limits there that have been a problem. And I in my camper van, I've fought that many times by adding in more and more and more lithium battery to it because you can't do it. So I thought this was kind of an interesting opportunity to look at a simple, very simple thing, but the fact they used generative AI to come up with 5 new battery materials that seem more promising than lithium,
Mhm.
um, more sustainable and more powerful. To me, that's a good example of using this in a way that will help us solve some of those problems in ways that we couldn't have done on our own.
Yeah, it's the kind of conversational point that you and I back and forth on a regular basis. It's sort of fundamentally kind of technologically optimistic that it's going to kind of help us do something that goes beyond where we are currently capable. And yeah, maybe this is a great example of that. It could well be. Um, there's lots of obvious questions that you could ask about the timescales and materials being theoretical as opposed to actually
Mm,
practicable, whether we can actually make these materials and make them work in, in a time frame that makes sense. But for sure, I mean, you're hitting on a subject for me that I find particularly important and possibly doesn't quite get the coverage it deserves, which you talked about the environmental impact and energy.
yeah.
It's not just that, of course, as well. It's things like, as you know, water
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
crowding out other things, potentially creating
Mhm.
competition for resources. And hey, we're going to talk about competition for resources in a minute or
Oh,
two,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But it's creating that competition that might be crowding out alternative and possibly even better approaches to
Yeah.
tackling some of these problems. Um, uh, and I don't know, kind of, can I answer this? I mean, it might be the case, and batteries have always been a big challenge, really.
Yeah.
We know that they've been sort of fundamentally somewhat limiting um, to how we power things
Yeah.
and store
Yeah.
power. And
Yeah.
maybe this is the breakthrough that changes, makes a huge game changing
Maybe.
shift. It could be.
Yeah.
And
And I
let's
mean,
go.
it ties into sustainability too, right? Because you can make a lot of electricity from the sun, solar, but you have to store that. You can't like at night, you don't get any electricity from the sun, and it just doesn't work. So
On
that
that.
having
Indeed.
better battery technology is important for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. And I think, yeah, 100%. I mean, we still store in this country. We have reservoirs that we built high up, store the
Mhm.
water, and then you let it go through to create hydroelectric. And
Yep.
then when the prices are high, and when the prices are low, you pump it back up again. Which
Yep.
I do think somewhat, if aliens were looking at our society, that's kind of either really crazy or really smart, or possibly both.
It could be both. I mean, I get it, and but the other thing too that I've argued for a bit about this is that we've already proven what we know that we are already producing more emissions than we have to hit the marks that we had set that we needed to hit to make to improve the environment to the point where it's not going to kill us. And so we know we're not hitting those. And unfortunately, in several parts of the world, we have political entities, leadership, if we want to use that word, which I'm not sure we do, that is going the opposite direction and causing more and more and more environmental damage. So I will tell you that I'm convinced that some way, and I don't know what the answer to this is. That's my point, actually. Carbon capture, carbon removal is going to become a thing that we don't have a choice in. And we've never been able to solve this as humans. So to me, using artificial intelligence on that problem, if it can solve it, that makes up for any amount of environmental damage or energy that it's used along the way. Because if we can't get the carbon out, we're putting more in, eventually it's just not going to work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm laughing. It's probably a nervous laugh. I suppose
Yeah.
I'll touch. It's not political. I promise. I'm going to be political, but it's a little bit sort of political satire. It's, I suppose, for me, I was going to zoom out and think it's a bit like these big environmental summits, which I am not saying are not a good thing. I am saying what surprises me is the number of private jets that fly to them.
I knew you were going to go here. I'm always going like, okay, well, but
And the
couldn't we
argument,
have done this virtually? I don't
yes,
know. Like,
uh, and there was that talk about a road that was built through rainforest and stuff like that. I don't know how true that is or not, but and yes, perhaps these in-person meetings are going to spark some sort of movement, some sort of idea that genuinely addresses the challenges, and it makes all those private jet flights worthwhile. Um, I hope it does, but I don't feel very optimistic about it.
yeah, I mean, that one particularly, I would agree with you on, and I think, there's some places where applying this new technology, new capability as we increase that, machine intelligence more and more. If it can help us solve some of those problems, then to me that is in fact a big upside and an essential because unless we're going to figure out a way to live on Mars, which doesn't look to me to be very attractive, we got a problem.
Yeah, spaceship Earth, which we are all quite dependent on, needs looking after.
Yes. And that brings me to the next one, and I have to tell you something, Tom, it's gonna break your heart. I know it is. This article, I read it and it hurt to the core. And that is in September, AOL is gonna end its dial-up internet service.
Yeah.
Shield browser, dialer software, all of those, they're shuttering them. So all you people out there that are on dial-up still, both of you, you better
Oh,
find
ouch.
you better find a new way to connect because next month it's over. After all this time, 34 years, it's over. No more AOL dial-up.
All those PC magazines with, 5 1/4 and 3.5 inch floppy disks, and then later on CD-ROMs, with your free 30-day trial of dial-up internet.
Yeah.
And will it, won't it, as the modem kind of revs up and starts making all those funny noises.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna set up one of those, to play that sound as I made this announcement, but I ended up getting busy and didn't get a chance. But you have to admit, everybody so there are a lot of people listening to this that I'm sure have no idea what we're talking about.
I
But for
suspect
those
that.
of us who were alive when we did have to go steal the plug out of the, fax machine to be able to connect to download our email while we were on a project, will know that sound.
Oh man, and was it sort of 9,000 baud, whatever, 9,000 something baud connection? But that was the first speed I ever had.
Oh,
Yeah.
I go back to 1200 baud. I'm older than you though, so
Oh man, glory days or not, depending on one's perspective. No, indeed,
yeah,
it is very much the end of an era. So how many years is it? So it's got to be 30 something, right?
34 years. 34
34 years.
years.
34
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Wow. And does this mean also that there's then going to be longer the You've Got Mail voice?
I think that it's been cloned so many times that you can still get that.
Oh, well, that's
I
all
mean,
right.
I know you were worried about that.
I'm
And the other thing is I'm pretty sure that if you miss that sound, we can find a clip of the sound, and every time you boot your computer up in the morning, you can play that sound and relive those glory days of dial-up at, 2,400 baud or whatever you were using.
well, yeah. I
So,
mean, it is. You're right. It's the possibly for some folks who could have grew up with technology at a certain age. It's definitely at the end of an era. Um,
yeah.
Although I'm still waiting where I live. We have like 70 megabits around here, just about,
Mm.
um, which is not bad. I mean, I'm not complaining,
Mm.
but it
Mhm.
has taken a while for for the full fiber to come in. And
Yeah.
what are we going to talk about next? I mean, so 34 years time, we're going to be talking about what end of era is going to be in 34 years time. Go on, here's your chance
Mm.
for you to make your prediction for 34 years time, Michael.
I just assumed in 34 years, we're all just gonna have the chip embedded and networked, and we'll be each a repeater and a router, and we just everybody makes a mesh as they move around in their environment. I don't Of course, to be honest, in 34 years, I think you're not gonna be hearing much from me, so,
Yeah, I mean, totally fair. I the network thing sounds terrifying, but
I knew you would like that one, that's why I threw
yeah,
that in.
but I do sure hope that you are still espousing your
That'll be a
wisdom
good thing.
in
I'm
34
not
years time.
opposed. I'm not opposed. And if you get back to the singularity actually being give me a robot body, I'm okay with that. Really, I am okay with that. Just
Ah,
so people
interesting.
know, I'm okay.
I so
I know a
I'm
lot of people aren't, but I'm okay with it.
okay. Cool. Watch this space.
All right. And speaking of that, let's go to something more actually newsworthy, I suppose. Although the AOL thing that was newsworthy, and that's this the buzz that started to come up again about the fact that AI resources are in very, very, very short supply, and we're starting to see some unique behaviors that that are creating some downstream damage and issues. And I know they said. In 2025, half of IT leaders reported AI talent shortages, which was double from what it was 2 years ago, and it's a serious shortage of skills. And in fact, it ties to another article we'll talk about in a little bit. I think around the fact that so many projects are not coming, they're not having the outcomes that they wanted to have, and I suspect a lot of that has to do with this issue, right? 50% of U.S. computer scientists with graduate degrees are from abroad. 70% current graduate students in the field are international.
Hmm.
Dependence is that we're starting to have worries about national security concerns, and we've had some kind of crazy immigration issues going on here in the U.S. and et cetera, right? But the big news was this idea around how are big companies approaching this, big tech companies approaching
Yeah.
this. And we used to talk about acqui-hires, right? You buy the company because you really wanted the people, not necessarily what the company did. And now we're kind of going to a world where it's this hybrid kind of setup where the big tech company goes in, makes a partnership deal to put money into the startup, or maybe they're licensing the tech for big dollars or whatever, and at the same time takes the top talent out of the company and consumes that as a part of that deal. And so that ends up creating kind of zombie startups that are, without a head basically. And so they have funding and they have money, but they don't have the talent to actually get to make more progress. And there were examples like Microsoft with Inflection AI, Google licensing character AI and then taking the talent, Meta scale AI and taking a major stake and then absorbing the top team, IP, outright, that sort of thing. So they don't have to go through the acquisition process, which, is always fraught with problems. And at the same time, the founders get a big payout. They have a new thing. The VCs that were in have a lucrative exit, but some of the people that are left there are just kind of abandoned. And does it really have a future? So it's an interesting problem that's kind of morphed into something that really does mean that the center of gravities are pulling in most of that available talent, which makes it much more difficult for startups, but even more so for companies trying to implement this.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I just have to say yes. I agree. uh, yeah, and you talk about the center of gravity. You've got these kind of mega scale companies with giant valuations, predominantly in the United States. And
Mhm.
does this hamper innovation?
Mhm.
Maybe. It,
Maybe.
it could do. Does it make me concerned about sort of the future of technology? Probably a little bit, yeah, because I think it starts to potentially suck the oxygen out of the room for someone who's got a new or innovative approach that might be differentiated. And it's like I talk about the gravity of data a lot. I think there's also, I think money has gravity. And we're talking about in the past the sheer volume of money that's been poured into this.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's now getting to the point where how's that going to get paid back, right? And I don't know. Is having two or three or
Mhm.
four or whatever it turns out to be really, really big companies
Mhm.
doing all this a good thing or a bad thing? And I
Yeah.
suppose to a certain degree that depends on not just your personal
Mhm.
economics, but also your politics and philosophy.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think, there is always, whenever you consolidate resources into one place, especially when it's, driving innovation, there's always that risk of, groupthink, and you get this kind of limitations based on the approach and the philosophy of that big company versus the capability to be a very nimble startup and move fast and break things. And I saw this term, they call this acquivestment, and I think that's kind of an interesting word to say, because it is actually pretty accurate that that it's that it is starting to be a worry. And actually, that leads us to this next story that you wanted me to add around the MIT study, that 95% of the projects were failing or going to fail, AI projects, and are not getting the results that they intended. And I suspect a lot of that, based on what I saw there, looked like it was related to that. It was related to the fact that they're having a really hard time both getting the talent they need and also the approach. It's just like all IT projects, right? The approach is a bit sloppy. You're not really applying the technology with the right sort of explicit plan to do and get these specific outcomes. It's more of a, gee, we need to have this, so let's use it and see what happens. And that's never been a recipe for IT success. So.
Generally, no, no. Let's throw something at the wall and see if it sticks.
Mm.
So yeah, this is the MIT study. One of
Yep.
their initiatives. I think it was 5%, about 5% of AI pilots programs, about 5% achieve rapid revenue
Right.
acceleration, while the vast
Yep.
majority fail. And I, for sure, I can see your line of argument and agree with. Um, Around kind of the lack of skills to make it real.
Yeah.
In some ways, I do think there's sort of, and you can spin this one and look at it from multiple different angles. I think there's definitely an expectations problem with AI. I think there's that sort of, it's magic. If I turn it on, it's going to make everything better, and my business is going to be
Uh-huh.
brilliant. And that's been an issue that's been around IT in the B2B world for
A
ever.
very long time. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
B2B IT's been around, business
Yeah.
IT's been around, enterprise IT's been around. Yeah, it kind of feels like that's been an issue to some degree.
Yeah.
And for me, it's reminiscent. I mentioned about sort of 2015, 16, 14, whatever it was, when I was talking a lot about data science. I think it's interesting to talk about that as a bit of a parallel, because one of the hot topics back then was, you needed data scientists. Everyone needed data scientists. There was a mass shortage of data scientists. Yeah. And the issue was that those people who did get them, there was that kind of challenge of context, right? So you can have a really super smart data scientist who really, blew everything away in terms of their ability to work with, manipulate, analyze, project data. But they didn't necessarily understand the context. And I think there's an element of that going on here, which is someone who's an AI specialist, might be a brilliant AI specialist, but do they know that what matters to company X in terms of their operations,
Yeah.
the context, the environment, the markets they operate in? And I think I think it's just an extension of that debate. And as it
Mm.
comes to me, as the interesting question mark that then follows all of those points really is, excuse me, is this going to be something that we innovate our way out of, right? In just the same way that
Mm.
analytics went from being business intelligence, and it was very PhD led and all that kind of stuff, and very kind of a small community, through to being able to use natural language to work with, whether it's a Tableau or a Click or whoever.
Yep.
Um, is this what we're going to end up with to some degree with these AI solutions, where
Yeah.
um, the technical skills in the AI piece are actually going to become quite a slim slice of the
Yep.
puzzle, and it's the business
Yep.
context, the people who understand that, being enabled to use it that's going to help address the
Mhm.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, you're already starting to see that in agentic AI and agentic AI platforms combined with a marketplace, right? And it's going to take a while for this to sort itself out. But the truth is, if you could, as a company, go onto a marketplace and go, okay, I need a finance agent, I need a SDR agent, I need a, whatever, and pick those, and then all you have to do is the last 20% or whatever to make it unique to your business. That is going to be a way to accelerate, and we did. Yeah, analytics is a good example, right? We did that with analytics. We've done that in these no code platforms that let citizen developers be able to create little extensions and apps that do things that they really need to solve their particular problem, and yet it doesn't require a technologist to do that. And I think that's probably true. I mean, the thing I know, one of the large analyst firms, I won't give them any promotion, but one of the large analyst firms said something like 40% of the projects, AI projects, would fail by 2026, I think. And I said at the time, look, we've had for ages somewhere north of 60% of all IT projects fail. So, I mean, that's actually good, not bad. So, I mean, the 95% number scares me, but at the same time, I think you're right. I think it is, there's resource issues, but there's also even more of how does this fit into that environment? How do you make it work in your business and actually get the outcomes that you're looking for? And the other thing is, how do you set the right expectations for outcomes, right? Because it's not, no tech has ever been, and even digital workforces, and your new collaborative digital workers, there's no magic bullet there, right? You still have to build it into your business, make it work in the process, have a process, understand that, and design it so that you get the outcomes. Just like hiring a human, you would need the same thing out of them. I'm going to hire a salesperson. I'm going to either train them, or I'm going to hire somebody who already knows how to sell the thing I'm trying to sell, and that's good. But if I expect a new salesperson to just step out and sell, meet their quota the first quarter, they're going to fail. And I think
Yeah,
that of what's happening here is
yeah.
the expectations are not aligned with the
No,
capabilities
I
or
think
what
that's
you could do.
totally fair. Totally
Yeah.
fair. Yeah, I do like that comparison with analytics, and we'll see how it plays out. And expectations are what expectations are. It just kind of echoes the previous point for me to a certain degree, which is there's been so much buzz and excitement and money poured into this.
Yeah.
I think expectations were inflated.
Yeah.
I suppose that's point number one. And point number two, um, the risk, the challenge, the problem, whatever you want to call it, that still exists, even if we do build, as it were, technologically our way out of some of this problem, and
Mhm.
kind of get to that agent world that you're talking about, for example, will still be the same problems it's always been, whether it was analytics, AI, whether many other things, which is, can I get the right data and is it of the right quality? And there's still a lot of skill involved in that. And I think those data skills are the ones that are increasingly, I don't think they ever go out of fashion to some degree.
No.
I'm not entirely convinced they were ever in fashion. I always make the joke, it's like,
Mhm.
when did someone get really excited about a data quality project in a big business? I mean, yeah, sure, some people, of course, but it's kind of a tough sell compared to a funky new analytics dashboard for kind of your customer service reps or something like that. But it's always just back that the basics of, if you put poor data in, you're going to get poor results, and that's the good case scenario. If you put poor data in, you could get catastrophically bad results.
Yeah.
And the technology might just let you do that a whole lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is all an evolution, and I think these, some of these growing pains are are not particularly different from all of the other innovation tech cycles we've seen in the past. To that point, though, I want to make sure I get this in my little plug. Uh, that I most people have heard me talk about this before, but I've been working on a agentic AI book called Building a Digital Workforce, and it is finally done. Waiting on a couple of little bits to come in from forward and that sort of thing, but it's being programmed and typeset. I love they still use that word typeset. It's being typeset right now, and it should be out the middle of September. And the whole thing I wrote from the perspective of, if I'm a business person, what do I need to know to actually make this work in my business?
Yeah.
Not am I a technology person and how do I build it, but how do I get the outcomes that I'm looking for? So hopefully that will be out. We're hoping to get the pre-orders up shortly. So the website for that one is yourdigitalworkforce.com, and hopefully we'll be able to take pre-orders shortly. It'll be available on Amazon and a few other places, ebook, hardcover and softcover, because some people do still buy those, I guess. So anyway, exciting, and I'm excited to announce that. So
That's big news. And again, congratulations. I look forward to my signed hardback copy. I want a signed hardback copy.
darn, I was going to say I already got a digital signature ready for the ebook, but
No. And I want some kind of witty line in there as well. I don't know what it's going to be. That's up to you.
I will ask Perplexity. I mean, I'll come up with something really good. And with that, we're at near the end. But I, our coolest tech innovation discovered this month. I have something that I particularly enjoyed, and I'm going to actually show this.
You won this month. Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's see if this actually works. If I can actually make this thing play. Hold on here. I'll let that play a little bit more, but I have to comment. Now, you have to admit that's pretty cool.
Oh, that is totally cool. I mean, all I can think about is Star Wars and speeders, and of course it is.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. And if anybody is trying to think of something that I would like for Christmas, that would not be a bad choice. I'm just saying.
I do believe the sticker price is $800 and something thousand.
I mean,
maybe you've got very wealthy friends.
I mean, well, I do, but none of them are going to be willing to spend any money on me. So.
As far as you know,
oh well,
maybe you'll get lucky.
Well, that is fair.
Super cool. No, definitely super cool. And I don't know. I'm sure there's other approaches to doing this. I'm sure I saw one recently. It was like a drone with the propellers. Different approach to the same problem. This one's jet engine, isn't it? I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. I think this one is it. I've looked at a bunch of them. When I saw this, I was like, "Oh my god!" And I just did a bunch of.
But that one does have an old.
I fell in a rabbit hole,
Yeah, oh, yeah. But it does. This is science fiction coming to life, and hopefully, I get to go have a go on one of these, basically.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of this show.
I was digging into some of the detail on this. So really quickly, the only challenge is I did notice the maximum rider weight is less than my current weight. So I've got some, discipline to engage in.
Or maybe they make a bigger one.
Or I just need to buy two and strap them together. I don't know, whatever the solution is.
I like that. All right. Anyway,
there you go.
There you go. All right. Well, that is, in fact, the show for this week. I am Michael Fauscette.
I'm Tom Pringle.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to September's AI Pulse. We will see you next week. And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arianresearch.com. If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arianresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arian Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.